let's start off our webinar with some introductions. My name is Nicholas Igneri. I am the host today. I will be guiding our conversation and looking at your comments and trying to answer some of your questions with Randy and Dave. I have over 20 years experience in the L&D space, so I'll chime in with my 2 cents every once in a while too, as I have my own thoughts on the topic. Dave, why don't you talk about yourself and Engage by Cell and what you do?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Dave Ashheim. I started this company, Engage by Cell, about 16 years ago. And I think 15 years ago, I met Nick when he was working in New York City for a big consulting training organization, and met Randy more recently. But both of these two speakers have immense background. So if anything that they say catches your eye, you want to connect with them on LinkedIn and connect with them to learn more about their organization. Engage by Cell, we're really a mobile company. When I think of mobile, I think of text messaging and mobile web apps. You see an example of a text and a mobile site on the left-hand side. We work in all industries. Some of our clients here are workforce development and hospitals and museums, but anybody that could use a mobile solution, we're all on board. So that's about Engage by Cell.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Yes, Dave and I go way back, and it's a pleasure to be working with him again in this capacity. So, Randy, you're the founder and owner of Coin Harlan, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Randy Coyne, as Nick said. I'm the founder. I was actually the co-founder of Coin Harlan, and it's been in existence for 15 years. But I have 25 years of custom learning design experience, and I started in e-learning in roughly 2002. And our organization provides completely custom solutions. We primarily do learning consulting. So you see a few examples there: needs analysis, templates, curriculum design. Sometimes we'll analyze existing programs. Our core service is learning design, so that's course or workshop creation in instructor-led, virtual instructor-led, and digital learning. We're here today to talk about Codex, but we do a lot of storyline, rise, and video development. And then the others are sort of in the lower left, what we kind of call crossover products. They can be used as learning. They can be used as just a resource. They really kind of straddle that line. And then the upper left is just straight information design. And Nick and I also go back, I think, about 20 years now, too. Nick was also a Coin Harlan client and our first buyer of Codex. So,
Yeah, it's a great tool. So, Randy will talk about that in a moment. And I think just the way the tool is developed and what it does, the functionality of the tool, I think you'll see clearly on how it can begin to chip away at distractions and begin to engage learners in a deeper way. So let's just talk about the distractions that we asked you to do a poll. Let's see what the data says. I pulled this from a couple of sources, but I think it's kind of in line with the population here indicated. We'll go through a couple of numbers here. 76% of employees report being distracted. That's a lot. That's a lot of people being distracted. 70% of employees disengage when training modules exceed 20 minutes. Okay, so we all know people have very short attention spans. And the tighter we can design our training and the clearer we can do that, the better off we'll be. We'll increase engagement in those programs. 65% report multitasking during training. I'm assuming that's really significant in the virtual training space, right? Because people have the opportunity to do multiple things. How many of you are multitasking as we're doing the webinar as we speak? 62% of employees report stress as a factor, and there's just a lot of stress in the world today for many different reasons, and that expresses itself in the workplace for sure. 61% of employees in an open floor plan report difficulty focusing. I've personally never worked in an open floor plan. I don't think I could. I would get way too distracted. So for those who do that, I can imagine how distracting that is. 44% of remote workers report household interruptions. I work remotely, and hopefully we won't hear my dogs barking in the background. I'm sure there will be a disruption at any moment. And 34% of employees believe training is relevant to their job. Okay, so a vast majority feel that training isn't relevant. We're not making the connection between the organizational strategic initiatives and how that aligns with the training that we're doing. And lastly, 25% complete optional training programs, like optional. Because a lot of times when we do the tech training programs and security, those are mandatory and must be completed. But the optional training programs, 25% are not completing those. So these are not great numbers. And I think what you indicated in answering the poll question when we first opened kind of all aligned to this. We have an engagement problem. So the question is, what do we do about it? How do we begin to chip away? There's no one thing that we're going to do to solve the engagement problem. It's a multifaceted problem, but I think what we'll talk about today is how do we begin to chip away at that problem from a design perspective and a communication perspective and meeting learners where they are and designing for those distractions. So I'll hand it over to Randy. Coin Harlan had recently launched a really cool product called Codex, as Randy said. In my last organization, I did purchase that product to build training. It was fantastic. I really thought, it was a piece of content that had to be distributed to a lot of individuals that weren't aligned to the organization. They were volunteers. So it was a really cool tool to grab their attention. They didn't really want to take the training, but they had to take the training. So we had to design it in a way that grabbed their attention. Codex recently won a Cool Tool award from EdTech. So we're getting recognition in the market for that product. So I'll hand it over to Randy. Oops, sorry about that. I'll hand it over to Randy, and she will walk through Codex. And
Okay, great. And Dave, just thanks so much for having us today and giving us the opportunity to share.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So as I'm getting ready to demo Codex for you, I'm just going to start here. We have a dedicated page and on our website, coinharlan.com/codex, which Nick will put in the chat at the end. So everything I'm about to show you, you can actually visit and play with yourself right here in the use cases section. And I'm going to be demoing parts of 2 today, the participant guide and what I have as more of a micro learning design. So as you can see here, this is the interface, and I just want to provide some context. If you think about every modern medium is competing and heavily investing for our visual and emotional engagement today. And if you think about it, with rare exception, that's not really happening in the learning space on a big scale. So, right, we have marketers creating content to grab our attention in seconds, right? The Super Bowl commercials, we have apps that we know are engineered to be addictive. Companies are paying top dollar for the world's best psychologists and user interface designers to grab people's attention with emotion, color. They know what's working that makes people stop, stay, scroll, and move on. But as I said, if you look at corporate learning today, we're not really seeing that same investment. And I won't get into it. I acknowledge there are absolute realities and constraints within the industry that make perfect sense as to why we're not caught up. But we're still on balance, we're looking at a lot of slides. We're looking at e-learning that looks like slides. We're clicking next button still, even with Rise. Yes, we're scrolling, but we've been scrolling the internet for 20 years. So we're just seeing it's just not caught up. And one of the things, these are the types of things we were really thinking about when we designed Codex, and that we continue to think about as we evolve Codex. And I'm just going to kind of go open a few pages here and then really get into the demo. But something I want to point out is I know that and some of you may be thinking this, there is digital magazine technology on the market. There's Flipping Book, there's FlipSnacks. And a major thing, if you walk away today knowing anything about one of the differences, is we have full SCORM analytics, just like e-learning courses. A lot of those services just have SCORM wrappers. And if this is too jargony for you, we can cover it in the Q&A, and you're certainly able to follow up with us afterwards. But for those of you who need those SCORM analytics to track all your training, maybe you're in a field safety training or there's compliance in pharmaceutical, rest assured, Codex provides all the same data tracking as you would with an articulate storyline course. So I'm going to go over the exterior, the interface first, the ever-present features, and then I'll move inward to the pages. So we did borrow some from e-learning, the things we didn't need to reinvent the wheel, things that are working great. So you have a progress bar here at the top so you can track how far along you are. You see, we have visual navigation instead of text-based navigation, which is different from a storyline or articulate course. But you can see the page level tracking. Anything I have visited, you're seeing the check marks, so you know exactly what you have and haven't done. Across the bottom, simple, you can hide the menu if you'd like, return to your home page. But the features that are most important, I think, to convey today are ones we built in for what we feel is important for personalization. So something simple, I know many years ago, I said I started as a learning designer in e-learning. We would talk about the font size. Is it big enough for the average reader? But you can personalize that experience by using the zoom. But I'd say more important to the personalization are the features down here in the right. For years I've been working in Storyline and other e-learning technologies, and you couldn't highlight text. You're in a classroom. It's really an important personalization feature for learners. We go into a classroom, we have a hard copy notebook, and we often bring different colored pens and sticky notes and so on and so forth. And so this feature actually allows you to do your highlighting. It also allows you to take notes. Instructional designers build into worksheets and online courses very specific reflections, and they give you, and you'll see in here, we have some of these spaces to answer very specific questions. But this is different in that, just like if you had a pencil and a hard copy notebook, you can really take the notes that occur to you. One of the things I haven't mentioned is this is not just for e-learning. One of the things about Codex that's great, and we're actually working with our clients on, is its multimodality. So we are using it as a participant guide. So imagine you're in a Zoom class and you have your notebook here and you want to take a personal note. You can do that in a way that we really haven't seen with typical e-learning. And I just want to go back to that SCORM analytics. This is all being saved this whole time on your LMS. So if you're doing whether you're in a class in the participant workbook and you're doing it off the LMS, or you're doing an asynchronous course, whatever notes and highlighting you're taking, they're being saved for you. So again, you're just really able to personalize that experience. These are unactivated in our online demos, but you can download the course and print it. So again, back to that personalization. For any kind of reason, if you just don't really like digital learning, you can download the course and have a paper copy. You can print just individual pages. And what's great about it too is whatever notes and highlighting you have done at the point at which you're going to download, all of that is saved for you. So again, it could be because you don't really like e-learning, but it could also be you're about to take a road trip, or you're about to get on an airplane and maybe you don't see the need to really pay for your online connectivity, or it's not reliable. You can take that course with you in a hard copy. Okay, so I'm going to move from the exterior interface into the interior. So some of the ways we think we're really helping with engagement is we're not holding ourselves to the instructional design online learning rigid standards of sort of yesteryear, right? We're not looking at the title of the page has to be in the same place, in the same font and style on every single page. When you flip through a magazine, you really feel the choice. You can flip wherever you want, let your eyes stop wherever you want. There's visuals. Every article has a different, visual, has a different type of title. And we're really allowing ourselves some freedom, balanced with good instructional design strategy, of course. But in terms of that engagement, we're really leaning more into the magazine space. You can see we're building in movement. So again, there's not necessarily instructional value here, but it is eye-catching. I've mentioned that we've borrowed from e-learning. Why reinvent the wheel? So everything that you can do in a Storyline course, you can do here. So this is just an example of a click to reveal. There's many different ways to do a click to reveal. Again, I know that's industry jargon, but illustrating this here, I'm sure you can see the point.
Check what percentage of the course you've completed by viewing the progress bar.
And we also have drag and drops, interactive checklists. Again, you can print all of this at the end. And for those of you who've done a lot of e-learning, it'll be very familiar to you to see a quiz like this. So we've borrowed heavily from what's worked. It's always worked. It will continue to work. Some areas that we've made some improvements. We are using AI quite a bit, and at low cost and for low cost and fast timeline, we're able to produce multimedia to just add to the engagement factor.
If you don't think I'm a real person, you're right.
But again, you know, one of the great things about Codex is if you're using this as a participant guide, it really makes more content mobile. It used to be the case what was shown in the classroom stayed in the classroom. So, you know, imagine this is a message from your CEO or maybe the head of your L&D department. And it used to be you'd watch it once and it was gone. But now you can just put those same videos in the participant notebook. And when they leave the classroom, they get to take that with them. They can watch it again as many times as they want. They can share it with other colleagues. If they enjoy doing an exercise, they want to do it again, they can reset it. So the content is much more portable than it had ever been. Another feature that we've built in that as a learning designer really excited me is third-party surveys. So in the quiz that I was showing you before, any answers and the data around that would have to be mined in the data in the LMS by an engineer or you know, a skilled LMS administrator. Here, what you're looking at, this is actually just SurveyMonkey. I have my own SurveyMonkey account, and it looks like it's just part of the course. So this allows you, whether it's, you know, an asynchronous e-learning experience or you're in a classroom, you can build these surveys in, and you're getting the results on the back end in real time. So if you need to make an adjustment for the iteration you're going to teach tomorrow, or you just want to find out, are the participants tracking? Are they understanding what I'm saying? You can build these surveys in. So that's what I'm going to show you with this participant guide. And now I'm just going to quickly move over to one more example. I call this the micro learning example. This is just to show you the contrast. You know, this has a completely different look and feel. Coin Harlan is completely custom. And so imagine this would be your brand and your content. But we did this on the SBII model, which is a model that a lot of our clients use to teach feedback to, you know, managers and employees. You can see, again, we've built in some of that movement to draw your eye. Our table of contents looks a little different here. We have some movement here with quotes. But in this progression, I'm just showing you, again, this is all done with AI. This is a knowledge transfer video that actually is teaching you about the SBII model.
If you've ever struggled with giving feedback that actually helps people grow, you're in the right place.
So I'm sure this will get even better than it is now, but it is pretty good. We have some more ways of doing click and reveal. And we're using AI to do activities where this is an interaction, for example, between a manager and an employee, where now you're seeing, after learning about the model, you're seeing a manager put it into practice. And you're observing, can you spot what they did well with SBII? You can check your answer and so on and so forth. So just a lot of things, hopefully you can see between or among, you know, the visual design and the types of learning activities we're building in, and then the ability to add media at a much higher rate for a much lower cost and development time than ever before. With AI, we're really able with this Codex tool to create much more engagement, both in asynchronous and synchronous experiences. And I will pause and hand it back to you, Nick.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, Randy. I could say, having used the tool, having on the client side of it, you know, one of the things I want to stress, I mean, you kind of talked about it in your presentation that I found as a user really great, is most training today is in a blended format, right? And we're moving towards shorter and shorter courses, as the data showed that, you know, people after 20 minutes, they lose attention. So we're moving towards more and more of a micro learning model, shorter courses, a lot of them maybe, or a number of them, blended format. What I loved about Codex, it's a great container for all that. You can actually display your e-learning course in there. You can display all your videos. You can have all your assessments. It's one container for a lot of different content. So, you know, I found it very, very valuable and thought it was a great tool, very innovative. Dave, why don't we move over to Engage by Cell and talk about what Engage by Cell is doing in the mobile space to help reduce distractions and grab attention.
Yeah, will do. Thanks for that too, Randy. That was just so insightful. That I've never seen such a interactive kind of way to learn. So I would think everybody that has a learning team would want to know more about it.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. Our angle on this is much more ephemeral, is more about nudging and touching and interacting with people. The two problems Engage by Cell is trying to solve is get somebody's attention, because if Randy and Nick are trying to get you to come back to that class or that course or that material, how do you get them back there? And then what about the size of the content? So everything that we're doing at Engage by Cell is trying to close that gap, trying to make the attention span such that a text message can come out, tap you on the shoulder, and then perhaps have a little bit.ly link to some content in Randy's tool or on a website or wherever. So we try to blend these two things. We found that email doesn't seem to be working these days. Phone calls are not working, but people will respond to texting. So if you can get your learners to agree to receive a text, and of course they need to agree to do that, you're going to get about a 98% open rate. And when you do that, at least you've got a chance to share that information. And when you can include some content, in our case, it might be a link to that, you see that training portal. So you text somebody, it's been 2 days since you were online on this program and you did something. It's time to review, time to watch a video, time to fill out a survey. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make that little bit of content digestible. So it's this 1-2 punch. Tap them on the shoulder, give them a link to interact or read or to do something. And those are the technologies that we've found seem to be working the best in the training space. So back to you, Nick. Oh yeah, right. So a couple of client examples. We have a teaching hospital, Augusta. They will put all of their agendas and all of their workflows. They'll store all of the content that their residents and doctors need, and it'll just be at their fingertips. In the middle case, we've got an HR department that put everything that an HR team needs to communicate with to their employees. They have about 500 employees on this mobile site. And when something changes, they'll send them a text and say, hey, we have a new manager, we have a new handbook, we have a new benefit, or open enrollment is coming up. And then on the right side, it's kind of what Randy and Nick were talking about polls and surveys. Once again, if you send somebody a text and you say, we'd love to get your opinion, click this link, you've got a 50-50 chance that they're going to interact. And it's because it's on their phone. It's just like dropped in their lap. So those are the tools that we see most helpful kind of in the L&D space.
So Dave, interesting. Do your clients need you to integrate with the LMS or launch things from the LMS? How do you handle that?
You know, when I started the company, we named it Train by Cell, and we were going to all the ATD and the SHRM conferences. It turns out that there are so many wonderful LMS type tools, including the one that Randy has created. Our place in the ecosystem is not on the content side. It's more on getting your attention and nudging you to go over to that tool and to use the tool, because those wonderful tools already exist. So we're more in the pathway or the gateway to get you over there.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So I think one way to think about it is in a continuous learning journey, right? So when as L&D professionals, this is pretty common that we think about a continuous learning journey, right? But continuous learning journeys are not just about the content flow, it's also about the full learner experience, right? So if you think about the logistic reminders, how do you grab attention and cut through those reminders? Well, I think what we're saying is Engage by Cell does that well through texting. That's where people are, that's what they're engaged at. Why not send the message there?
Yeah.
Awareness and alignment. I mean, you could do that in Codex. You could send a video out and say, hey, here is a video of how this training is aligned to the corporate values or the corporate culture or the corporate initiatives.
Right.
Assessments. I mean, this is where you get into the delivery a little bit. Maybe Codex and it kind of takes over, handle some of the assessments that you need to do, maybe pre-assessments about current learner knowledge. Now you're delivering the course. You do that in Codex. You align all your assets in the container of Codex. Do reflection exercises. You could do that in Codex as well. Post assessments again. Application. People go back to their job. You want to see how those individuals are applying the knowledge back on the job. You can have them then re-engage with Codex and put their thoughts about applications. So again, from a scoring perspective, you can report out on all these points in the learning journey. Evaluation, again, you could do that in Codex or you could do it through text. So I think the combination of these two tools in order to manage the continuous learning journey, really, I could see how it would really increase engagement and capture people's attention. But I think Randy, you brought up personalization a lot in your presentation, which is great. I think personalization in all aspects, whether it's marketing or L&D, is critical, right? To grab attention. That's why marketers try to personalize messages to grab attention. That's why L&D tries to personalize their learning experience in order to grab attention. You want to talk a little bit about the personalized learning journey and how you see Codex supports it? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about it in your presentation, but anything else you want to dig into?
I've had this career for 25 years. I know I'm dating myself, but I would say that the continuous learning journey really wasn't fully accepted until more recent years. And that might be a surprise to some people, but in my career, there were a lot of one and done courses. And again, if I could go back, and I don't have time today, there are a lot of practical constraints, right? Whether that's budget or that's time or not having the ability to re-engage people. So I would say a lot of the industry has come to accept the continuous learning journey. And I think that taking that to the next level is about personalization. So I think with Dave's tool particularly, I know there are some extraordinarily advanced organizations out there who are really leaning heavily into AI, or virtual reality. They have bots that can do some of this. But the reality is for most organizations, particularly small ones, that they don't have those kind of budgets. I think this is a great solution that meets that bridges between where the industry has been and where the industry may be in 10 years. And it does it in a very professional and very aligned way to how people are consuming content, both with Codex, as some of the features, but also texting. Dave made the point earlier and through conversations in discussing this webinar, it's really the one medium that actually will get your attention. Now, I am guilty of having emails fall off my screen. I don't mean not to reply, but it is true when the text message and the screen catches my eye, I actually turn and look. And so I think Engage by Cell has a really appropriate solution for where people are today.
Randy, have you had clients who wanted to use Codex on a mobile phone?
So Codex is designed for a mobile experience. I think for anyone who just pulls it up, the website and launches a demo, they'll see, of course, there's a little difference if you're not on your laptop, but it is responsive. And I know we did do one pilot where we were using Codex as the participant guide, and the facilitator did get some feedback that some people or one or two people had done the whole experience on their phone, and it was fine. So great question. Thank you.
No problem. And Dave, what about Engage by Cell, and how do you embed personalization into the pre and post messages and your flow?
Yeah, it can either be fancy because we can integrate through an API into an LMS type system, or it can be as simple as when the texts are going out, it will grab keywords, your first name, your location, and embed that into the text. So it looks like Randy is personally sending me a check-in text, although she sent it to 200 people that were taking that class.
Mhm.
And we've found, and I agree 100% with Randy, if you want to get people's attention, personalization is one of the keys. That's why when we get the email from Nordstrom's and it'll say, "Welcome back, Dave. It's been 2 months since you came here." It's like, oh, somebody, it's like my personal shopper, even though we know it's a bot. So we found that if you can use personalization, if you can keep your messages really short, that's why texting is important. Keep it relevant. I just took that class a week ago, a month ago, and now we're bringing it back to the surface. And if I could do it on my phone,
Mhm.
most people do not want to do heavy
Go
work
back in,
on their computer
go back into the LMS, try
and
to
get
find
back
where
in the
they're at.
LMS and all that. But if I can be tempted, like a little appetizer that I get a little message and it teases me into then logging into the LMS, and maybe through single sign-on, it brings me right back to that page. All of a sudden, I don't mind having this personalized learning journey. But if I have to bring out my workbook or go log in, it just makes it really tough.
Dave, do trainers utilize it to try to engage with students after a formal training?
Yeah, originally, Nick, that wasn't a big thing, but I think as more organizations are thinking that texting is a business tool,
Right.
which is a kind of a new concept, at the end of a class, the instructor will say, "Would you like to receive a text a month, a text a week to kind of keep the material fresh? And if so, reply yes," or however the opt-in is.
Mhm.
And gosh, we've got teachers that will keep that class connection going for 6 months or more.
Okay, it's a great way to engage with learners. And again, I would assume that people are on the job doing their work and they run into a problem and they need some support and they can use text to
Yeah,
engage with
yeah,
an expert.
yeah.
Great. Okay, well, this was an interesting conversation. I want to open it up for Q&A in the audience. So if you have any questions or you want us to dig into something a little bit more, please feel free to type your question into the webinar chat, and then we'll take questions.
Yeah, it's great.
As we wait for some of those questions to come in, um, we can talk a little bit more about personalization and how that might support the learning experience. I think one of the things that I heard feedback from in my implementation of Codex was the ability to engage with the content. So when we do, normal e-learning or participant notebooks, it's not so engaging, but the visual engagement, the ability to take notes, the ability to, um, do drag and drops and actually write in a book, it was really one of the things that the participants in my experience really loved. Randy, are you finding that a lot? I mean, I'm sure you are, but anything particularly you want to talk about those type of engagement tools within Codex and what
Sure.
you're hearing about from your users?
Well, I think the context would be to remind people of there's so much research and studies done on how people learn and
Mhm.
what how they best retain and learning preferences. And so the feedback that we get is it's in the variety, right? Not everybody prefers to do things the same way, but we all know, when we go back, if we're thinking about school or our college years, or if we've studied for a professional exam, we come up with a methodology that works for us. Some people write note cards and things like that. And so with Codex, I think what is important for people is that there are different ways to do the same thing, right? Some people
Right.
can they love that digital experience. Other people want the hard copy. Other people
Mhm.
want to take notes. Other people want to color code their notes. And so,
Mhm.
there's just more to align with people's preferences, whatever those are.
So here's one more one question that came in, can Codex integrate with Microsoft Forms? And like SurveyMonkey, you are able to embed a SurveyMonkey into the Codex experience. Can you integrate with Microsoft Forms?
We can. And depending on what your organization uses, it's a very simple test for us, for our coder to look at how that third party is set up and if they provide permissions to display it in an application like Codex or another application. It would not prevent us from using that if your organization uses a form that we can't embed it right on a Codex page. We would just have to link out to it. But it's a very simple test. So whatever your organization is using, we can figure it out.
Mhm. Another question came in. What size types of companies use Codex and or text messaging? Dave, why don't we start with you with the text messaging and what the types of companies that generally come to you?
Yeah, I think the typical company on the texting side are the ones that are maybe not the multinationals, but
Mhm.
everybody below that. So many of the large companies have in-house trigger systems, pings, whatever you want to call it, and they're comfortable with that. But companies that are 5,000 people and under, they don't have some of those very sophisticated apps that have been adopted by all of their employees.
Mhm.
So it can be from 5 to 5,000 people.
Hmm. And Randy, what about Codex? I know Codex is new to the market, but what are you seeing?
That's right. Well, we actually have a customer that has 14,000 employees. It's a global tech company, and they are using it in multiple modalities, some of which I didn't even speak about. So we've used it as a hybrid participant guide and an async course. So you kind of double your return on investment because you get to use the course in two different modalities, which again allows people to take it in the form that they'd like, whether they want to be in a live class or take it asynchronously. We're also using it as in-tag team conversation guide. So we call that the cascade when when we're not going to do formal learning, but the organization needs to disseminate a message or something with change management. We're able to track those conversations now and blend in a train the trainer using AI video. So we have one tech company that, as I said, is using it in all of these different modalities. We have another Bay Area tech company that was using it for actual technical certification course, all the way down to an entrepreneur who's using it to build newsletters with content that she's an expert in. So we're seeing it run the gamut of company sizes, and that's for pharmaceutical industry. So
Yeah. So Randy, how long does it take to implement Codex?
that's a great question. You know, one of the advantages, the technology behind Codex, there is no third-party tool. Codex, the technology, is actually a PDF web reader. So, you know, when you open a PDF in Acrobat, or you might be able to open it online, that's a web reader. And that's what the Codex technology actually is. What we're building the courses in is, we personally build them in Adobe InDesign, in graphic design software, and then we save them as a PDF. And that is the basis of a course. So any PDF can become a Codex. I would say, you know, it really depends. Coin Harlan services range from, we're starting with absolutely no content to a simple conversion. You're giving us an old storyline course. But I would say for people who are used to building digital learning asynchronously through something like Articulate Storyline, it's completely cutting the build out. So once that PDF is done, it can become a Codex in just an hour or two.
Yeah. So it's something you have to install on the client side. It's a tool that you use to build out your content.
That's right. Anybody who's already building PDFs, like I said, it's a
Right.
very simple switch for us to take that PDF and turn it into a Codex.
Great.
Hmm.
Hey, Dave, this question is for you. Are there tiers of alerts you can opt into for Engage by Cell? For instance, can you opt into different levels of alerts?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Thomas. If you, at the far end, we can integrate into a piece of software. And if you've got alerts that are alerting people, just like you have alerts for email, then we can follow the same rules. Otherwise, most of our clients will ask the user, the employee, how often would you like to be communicated with via text? Some will say daily would be great. Others would say once a month. So then basically then people are going into buckets of engagement. So those that like to get a daily text, they might reply with the word daily, and then they're getting a daily text. So it can be customized for the user.
Okay. And this is for Andy. Does a learner need to create an account on Codex in order to save notes and highlights?
No, I'll talk, there's a couple different ways you can implement Codex. Again, for those of you whose organizations use learning management systems, which is a critical part of one implementation. If you are hosting Codex on your learning management system and you're assigning that course, your employee or whoever's using it, the learner will already have a profile and an account on their learning management system that'll already be set up. So you're just assigning them a course that's Codex instead of Storyline, and all the same way it works with Storyline, it's going to work with Codex. If you're not using a learning management system, we can still build you a Codex and you can run it off an internal website, for example. However, it's too much to get into today, but you're not having that back-end database of the LMS to save everything. So you can take the course and write your notes and highlight. If you print the course, it'll print everything, but once you close it, you'll lose all of that because there's no back-end database behind it.
Great. Thanks, Randy.
Sure.
I'm going to put in the chat again the Codex website. So you can go there. Randy and the Codex team have put together several different types of books. You can look through them and dig into it a little bit more. We would love to continue the conversation with anybody who's interested in digging into Codex and Engage by Cell further. We'll be sending out the recording with a note if we want to at that point schedule some time to have a further conversation. We could do deeper demos. We could talk about Coin Harlan's approach to instructional design, or Engage by Cell's approach to using chat and messaging to support the learning experience. I want to thank everyone for your time today. It was great conversation. Randy, any final words?
Nope, just thanks again for letting us share, and hope to see you again soon.
Dave, anything that you want to
No,
close?
thanks to Randy and Nick. And I love the Codex tool. So make sure when you get that email tomorrow from Anna, our marketing team, take 15 minutes and reach out to Nick and Randy and see if they've got something that can help your learners. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, we'd love to have the conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Hopefully we'll be in touch soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.